Breathing is the most constant interaction we have with our environment. Every few seconds, air enters the body, passes through delicate tissue, and directly influences how every cell functions. Unlike food or water, air is not optional. We cannot fast from it, filter it consciously, or take breaks from it. In urban environments, this matters more than people realize. Cities concentrate energy, movement, and opportunity, but they also concentrate exposure. The respiratory system becomes the primary interface between the human body and modern infrastructure. Most people think of air pollution as something dramatic: smoggy skylines, burning smells, or visible haze. But the most impactful exposures are often invisible, odorless, and continuous. Urban air pollution is not usually about acute toxicity. It is about chronic physiological load. The respiratory system evolved to handle dust, pollen, bacteria, and occasional smoke. It did not evolve to handle constant exposure to microscopic combustion particles, nitrogen-based gases, and chemically reactive pollutants produced by traffic and industry. One of the most important pollutants in urban air is fine particulate matter smaller than 2.5 micrometers, known as PM 2.5. These particles are small enough to bypass the nose's filtering mechanisms and reach the deepest regions of the lungs. Once there, they interact directly with the alveoli, the thin-walled air sacs responsible for oxygen exchange. At this level, the immune system is forced to respond, even when the exposure is low. This response is subtle. It does not usually feel like illness. It feels like background noise inside the body. Low-grade inflammation becomes the default state. Airways become slightly more reactive. Mucus production increases just enough to be noticeable during exercise or infections. Over time, this changes how the respiratory system behaves under stress. Recovery from colds takes longer. Breathing during exertion feels heavier. Allergic responses become more intense. The lungs are not isolated organs. They are embedded in a network that includes the heart, blood vessels, immune system, and nervous system. When lung tissue is irritated, oxygen transfer becomes marginally less efficient. The heart compensates by increasing workload. This compensation is small, but persistent. Over years, this contributes to cardiovascular strain, not in dramatic ways, but in measurable ones. Epidemiological data consistently shows associations between long-term air pollution exposure and increased cardiovascular risk. Another system quietly affected is the nervous system. Breathing is tightly linked to autonomic regulation. When breathing becomes inefficient or irritated, the nervous system shifts toward a more alert, defensive state. This is one reason people living in polluted environments often report higher baseline anxiety, restlessness, and difficulty relaxing, even when they cannot identify a clear cause. Sleep is particularly vulnerable. The respiratory system is most exposed during sleep because breathing becomes unconscious and prolonged. If airways are irritated, breathing patterns subtly change. These changes may not cause full awakenings. Instead, they fragment deep sleep stages. Morning fatigue increases. Cortisol levels rise earlier in the day. People often attribute this to stress, aging, or poor habits, rarely to air quality. Indoor environments are often assumed to be safe by default. But indoor air is a reflection of outdoor air plus indoor sources. Cooking releases fine particles and nitrogen compounds. Cleaning products release volatile organic compounds. Candles and incense release combustion byproducts. Poor ventilation allows accumulation. In some cases, indoor air quality is worse than outdoor air, especially in tightly sealed buildings. Ventilation is essential, but it must be intentional. Opening windows indiscriminately does not guarantee improvement. Air quality fluctuates throughout the day. Traffic density, atmospheric pressure, wind, and temperature inversions all influence pollutant concentration. Ventilating during low pollution periods allows indoor air to reset. Ventilating during high pollution periods adds load. This is one of the simplest interventions that is almost never optimized. Another common belief is that natural solutions are sufficient. Houseplants are often promoted as air purifiers. While plants have benefits for mood and humidity, their ability to remove airborne pollutants in real living spaces is negligible. Relying on plants instead of ventilation or filtration does not reduce exposure in any meaningful way. Mechanical filtration can help, but only if it is correctly implemented. To remove fine particles like PM 2.5, filtration must meet specific standards. A true HEPA filter captures particles down to 0.3 micrometers with high efficiency. Equally important is airflow. A filter that processes too little air cannot reduce overall concentration. Many consumer devices focus on aesthetics rather than performance. They may reduce odor or large particles while leaving fine particulate load largely unchanged. Masks are another area of confusion. Cloth masks and surgical masks are designed for droplet control, not fine particulate filtration. Properly fitted respirators such as N95 or FFP2 masks can significantly reduce inhalation of fine particles. However, they are not designed for continuous, all-day use in normal life. They are best used during short periods of high exposure, such as heavy traffic zones or extreme pollution events. The most underestimated protective mechanism is the human nose. The nose is an active organ. It filters, humidifies, warms, and slows incoming air. Nasal breathing increases turbulent airflow, allowing particles to adhere to mucosal surfaces. It also stimulates nitric oxide production, which supports airway function. Mouth breathing bypasses these mechanisms entirely. Air enters colder, drier, and unfiltered. This increases irritation of the lower airways. Chronic mouth breathing is associated with higher airway sensitivity and reduced tolerance to polluted air. Modern life promotes mouth breathing through stress, poor posture, sedentary behavior, and disrupted sleep. Restoring nasal breathing during rest and low-intensity activity is one of the most effective ways to reduce respiratory load. Proper breathing is not about deep breathing. It is about efficient breathing. Overbreathing, breathing faster or deeper than metabolic demand, reduces carbon dioxide levels in the blood. This paradoxically reduces oxygen delivery to tissues and increases airway reactivity. Slow, controlled breathing maintains appropriate carbon dioxide levels, supports oxygen release, and reduces total air volume inhaled. This directly reduces pollutant intake. Diaphragmatic breathing supports even lung expansion and reduces unnecessary tension in the chest and neck. It also signals safety to the nervous system, shifting it toward a parasympathetic state. Stress amplifies respiratory vulnerability. When stressed, breathing becomes rapid and shallow. Mouth breathing increases. Inflammatory responses intensify. In polluted environments, this creates a compounding effect. Pollution stresses the body. Stress worsens breathing. Poor breathing increases sensitivity to pollution. Breaking this cycle requires addressing both environment and physiology. Movement remains essential for respiratory health. Avoiding physical activity out of fear of pollution can reduce lung capacity, circulation, and resilience. The goal is not avoidance, but strategic exposure. Lower intensity activity, nasal breathing, and timing exercise away from peak pollution periods preserve benefits while minimizing harm. Indoor activity can be useful when outdoor conditions are poor, provided ventilation or filtration is adequate. Hydration supports mucosal defenses. Dehydrated airways are more vulnerable to irritation. Nutrition supports systemic inflammation control. Omega-3 fatty acids, whole foods, and antioxidant-rich diets support recovery, though they do not neutralize exposure. No supplement replaces clean air, but a supported body adapts better. The realistic goal of respiratory health in urban environments is not elimination of exposure. It is reduction of cumulative load. Small reductions applied consistently produce large long-term effects. Urban life does not doom respiratory health, but it does require awareness, adaptation, and realistic strategies. Breathing is automatic, but respiratory health is not passive. It is shaped by environment, behavior, and physiology every single day. Understanding this turns breathing from a background process into a modifiable system. And in urban environments, that understanding is not optional.